Because as a superhero, you cannot. Yes.
Hi, good day. How is everyone doing today? Oh, all right, guys. So today we will be looking at the last aspect, which is security. Yes, I saw your question, Samson. I saw your question. Um, I think I will comment on that shortly. So today we'll be looking at the last thing, which is security, which is firewall. I'm sure most of us already know what firewall is all about. I'm sure most of us already know what firewall is all about. Um, so before I go into that, I would like to address. So basically, this USG, which you have just made mention of right now, is more like scripts that has already been automated that implements most of the hardening that you might require or that you might want to do on your Ubuntu instance. So from what I can see here is it's already customized and created and written so that you can just update it and you can just install it and it will bring by default most of the security clearances that you'd want. For instance, for the various instances that you're using and everything, it's good, but also you need to be sure that you know what you're trying to install and that you don't install something that will probably be an issue for you tomorrow. So I will always advise before you start doing any form of security hardening on your server, first and foremost, there should be an SOP for that. What I mean by an SOP is a standard operational protocols, which your entire team would have agreed and said, look, that these are the things that we're going to need to implement. Secondly, you will have to identify that all the things that you want to implement from the USG server names and everything, that it's only the things you want to implement that have been implemented or that would be implemented, so that you don't you don't install something that eventually could be an issue for one of your applications running. So it's always good to have that properly documented, all the things that needs to be installed. What are the pros and cons of installing these things? Who could be affected? Sometimes you could have an SMTP server, or you could have, if you're not using a separate SMTP server, for instance, it means you need to have SMTP installed on your server. And if at any point in time you have stopped installation of SMTP on your server, no matter how much anyone tries to install SMTP, until you allow that installation of SMTP, it would it would it would still block your team from working. So you need to be sure that you have these things properly documented, and it's like you said, it's good. This is good practice trying to run all the hardening scripts, but you need to be sure that these are the things that you really need for your server and what exactly are these servers being used for. You might have different policies for different base servers. Okay, I'm sure that I've been able to explain that better, Samson. So let's go into our topic for today, our main topic for today, which is Linux firewall. Okay. Before we proceed, anyone has any questions? Does anyone have any questions from our last session? I want to give the next 10 minutes or so to answer questions from our last session. Does anyone have questions from our last session? Okay, I'll just do a quick recap. Basically, what we spoke about the last time was systemd, systemctl, daemons, tag system target. So we were talking about having to use the server. So hold on, please. Sorry. We're talking about Linux services, how to set up and manage Linux services using systemd, systemctl. So in my last mission, I said systemd is a system or a service manager for all your Linux operating system. It provides with quite a number of features, such as it helps with parallel startup of systems at boot time, on-demand activation of daemons or dependency-based service control logic. So basically, you just use that to run services. You use it to manage services. It's more like what we call the service manager for your server. And I said there are different types of units, different type of systemd units. We said there is the service type, which is just the system service. We mentioned the .target, which is more like a group of systemd units. So if you want to have different groups of systemd units, you can actually put them all as a target unit, and you can make reference to them. We have the .mount, which is just the system mount point. The .snapshot, which is a snapshot manager for your systemd. .swap, which is the device swap or the application swap or the Linux swap file. We also discussed about the locations of the systemd directories. It's the ones that are stored in the system libraries, the ROM file, and the etc file. What else again did we talk about? Okay, so we also took ourselves through installing Apache and running it using the systemd commands to see that they're running and restarting it and all that. So basically, I think these were just a few things that we spoke about. Any other person has anything he wants more clarification on? Okay, good. So without without yeah, then I changed host names. Yes, they were all part of the Apache training that we did. That was an additional training that was not part of what we were supposed to have done, but I just added it. So without going any further, today we'll be talking about Linux firewalls. Um, so we'll be talking today about Linux firewalls. Basically, we all have we all have the we all know that UFW. There are different types of firewalls. I will be using my terminal as an example. That is the UFW. That is the firewall D, firewall D, and that is the IP tables. So the IP tables is generally the main one. That's more like the father of firewalls. That's more like the father of firewalls. So the UFW is a streamed down version of the IP tables. Um, the UFW is a streamed down version of the IP tables, where it's actually built, takes up some of the configurations that we required on the IP tables, and puts it into the UFW. So for you to use the IP tables, for instance, we can decide to run. It comes by default. The IP tables come by default with IP tables come by default with what's it called, with all Linux distros, but by default also the UFW comes with Ubuntu, because that is the Ubuntu versions of it. So IP tables -L. So this gives you the information on the IP tables. I have my UFW installed, so that's the reason why you can see all this. Has anyone ever had anything to do with IP tables before? No. All right. Yeah, but for the essence of this training, I think it's the UFW that we spoke about. So, or that was taught. So I think let's focus on it. But before we go further, I would just want to give you just a few things about the IP tables. It's a much more complex firewall rule, but it's much more efficient because you can store firewalls configuration based on target groups. You can store it also based on protocols, and you can store based on IPs also at the same time. And there are some basic things like I'll take you through some of the few things that you just need to know. Just very few things you need to know. I'm not going to go deep, and I wouldn't want you guys to ask me too many questions on this, but just very few things that you need to know. Now, I'll start with what we call the target. The target here in IP tables is defined as what actions that will need to be done on the packet. So who are we targeting? what is the rule set we want to make? Who are we planning to target it on? Now, here you can see an example is UFW before login input, all, anywhere. The next thing you need to look at, I'm just looking, this is the target, UFW before input. So these are default UFW policies or firewall policies that were set up immediately I enabled my UFW. The next part we'll look at is the prot. Now this just defines the protocols or the IPs that we want to use for the packet. So if you want it to be port 8080, port 80, port 22, 443 or whatever, that's where it's going to come out. The source here is, it just tells you the source address of the packet. So who are we letting in and who are we not letting in? Then who are we letting in? The source, where is this request going to come from? Are we blocking requests from the internet? Are we blocking requests from a particular IP? Are we blocking requests from a particular geo region or whatever? Then the destination is where the address of where you are pointing it to. So the destination will be most likely might be your server, might be externally, might be a service, might be an IP or whatsoever. So that's just a very, very brief introduction about this. I'm not going to take us so deep into IP tables. So we're going to be looking at UFW. So by default, UFW doesn't come activated. I was the one that actually activated my USW on this server for the purpose of this training. I hope you're all hearing me properly. So for the purpose of this training, I just activated UFW. Now, if you see, because I have allowed port 22 from anywhere, for instance, these are just the rules I have allowed Apache and port 22. This is, now we need to understand that it's what we call IP version 4 and IP version 6. So these two are the IP version 6. That's because of the lack of IPs. They decided to create what we call IP version 6, which allows not just numbers but also alphabets, and that gave us the ability to have more IPs in the world, for people to use and everything. So that was the reason why version 6 was set up. So now I've allowed Apache and port 22 on this server. It means that my server can take any request from anybody from port 22. Usually for the essence of hexadecimal. Thank you. No, I didn't go to primary school. Usually for the essence of this training, you can decide you're allowing port 22 from anywhere. This is actually a wrong process. This is very wrong, because your port 22 should only be allowed from a particular server most times. Should only be allowed from a particular source most times. So let's see what is my IP address here. .8. So I can decide to allow UFW allow SSH port 22. I want to allow port 22 TCP has been added already. So UFW allow from, let's say, my IP so now I've just allowed my slave IP into this server. The problem now is that I've allowed it to do anything it wants to do into the server. I've allowed it to do anything it wants to do into the server. Now, this is not a good process. What you can do here is, it's not a good thing to do. So what you can do here is you can say UFW allow from 192.168.56.9/24. No, let's say /32 to any port 22. Now, if I take a look at my UFW status, you can see I've allowed to port 22 on my server. Now, if I decide to do UFW status numbered, I can decide to remove UFW delete 4, right? Yes, because I don't want it to allow from anywhere. Yes, clear UFW status. It gives us allows this port to port 22. Are we following? Yeah, TCP is a network protocol. So now the difference between this and this is that I'm allowing port 22 on TCP, which is the normal thing. This is allowing port 22 on every protocol, UDP, TCP, any protocol you can think of. But here I'm allowing port 22 only on TCP protocol. So it means it's not going to let UDP also come in. It's just going to be only TCP that can pass through this. Yes, SSH uses mostly TCP. For you to check your IP running server, just do apidr IP address. That's all. So this is myself. This is my IP. What happens if I remove the number 2 and number 3? What is number 2 and number 3? Nothing happens. Nothing happens. It just means that you will not be able, if I have a public IP, you will not be able to have access to it. So the reason why I use /32 is because for /32 you are referencing just one IP. There's just one IP in that subnet group. For /24 there is more than one IP. There are quite a number of IPs, and I'm only referencing my own local system, which usually should be /32. Okay, Innocent, I think you were thinking I was going to have a failure. No, I will not have a failure because I'm already allowing it here in number two. It's when I block this number two that I might have a failure. No, because I'm still, I had more than four of it. So that's why it did not block. But if I delete this, I will not have access to the server again because I'm moving all access to port 22, which my server is communicating through port 22. So I will not have access to it again. I can't see number 6 here, Esther. So the difference between that is the IP version 4 and the IP version 6. This is IP version 4, and the last one, which is 5, is IP version 6. So I can always remove anything that has to do with IP version 6. I'll not feel anything because I'm not communicating using IP version 6. You made a rule for TCP and also from everywhere. Won't the everywhere override the TCP? I'm not seeing any rule from everywhere here. Now, once you are setting up your rules, if you don't specify it, you enable everything together, Kingfisher. So you need to specify a particular rule that you want to set up. If you don't do that, you'll be enabling everyone. Mm. Okay, so do we all understand how to set up UFW Linux commands right now? Activate it. It comes inactive. Activate it. UFW enable. Please, we need to use this thing as often as possible. You all need to use your manual pages as often as possible. It will give you everything you need to know. It will tell you everything you need to know. It will tell you everything you need to know. UFW enable allows you to enable your system. Okay, let's take for instance. Let's say, for instance, I want to allow UFW allow, let's say, port 3306. Allow from this to any port 3306. If you do something called dry run, okay, it already exists. Let me delete it, then run it again. Do you all understand what I've just done now? Do you all understand what I've just done now by adding this dry run on this in my command? Okay, what I've done here is when you use dry run naturally in programming, in running commands and things like that, it shows you, it doesn't let you run the application. It doesn't run the command, but it tells you what is going to happen. What's going to happen? Yes, exactly like a verbose mode, but what's just to test what's going to happen and if your rule is going to work. So now, by running that, it's filtering all my commands, all my firewall rules here, and it's showing me these are the commands that it's going to run. These are exactly the commands that we have existing right now. This is the Apache command that we have, allowing port 80 and all that. Then we have the one for the port 22. Then it now picks up the one I want it to do, which is, it shows me the command I want to run. So like I said, UFW is a streamed down version of iptables. This is the command I ran for iptables. Now I'm saying it's telling me a UFW user dash impute, which is the command that it needs to run. I explained all those things to you. And running on port TCP, running on protocol, TCP protocol on port 3306. And the source, which is -s, is this IP. -j, which is what action is accept. Do you all understand what this command? Do you understand what I just said about this command now? The -a is the command that allows you to install. The UFW user input is the description. So this UFW, this is the description by default. The -p is the protocol, which is TCP. The -- port is the port I'm allowing it, or is the port that I've told to allow. The -s is the source file, which is this IP, and the -j is the action, which is accept. Anybody still confused about this? Now, the command that brought us here is by adding the dry run. Now, the dry run here is It's like I'm testing. I want to test my command to see what's going to happen. Is it going to work? So, if for instance there is an issue with, let's say, my spelling, can you see dry run tells me immediately that there's an error message. You can see my port number is wrong or my port spelling is wrong, and it's telling me immediately that there's an error message. So you use dry run to investigate your commands to see what you're trying to do. Like a demo thing, yes. Okay. So do you all understand what I've done so far? No, the dry run never creates a rule. The dry run is just for testing. It never creates the rule. No, when you want to run the command, you don't need to put the dry run. The dry run is just to test it. So, port. When you want to run the command, you just need to remove the dry run. Remove the dry run and run it, and it adds the file. Yeah, because you didn't add the dry run. So you need to remove the rule before you can add, and then add the dry run, and you go, or just run another, change the port and add the dry run to it. This is the reason why yours is not showing me the same, because you didn't add the dry run to it. No, dry run is natural for so many things, so many applications, or many commands have this dry run for just for testing purposes. Okay. Um. So there, I'm sure you already know most of the UFW rules. There is something I would like us to do. Does any do you all here know how to install Apache, PHP, and MySQL? Okay. I think the training already allows us to install Apache and PHP. So um, do you all know how to install SFTP? they are all just basic. They're all just basic tools. They're just basic things that we use generally. I'd really would like you all to try to learn how to. Let's see. I will do an SFTP installation. It's just basic. First and foremost, what's SFTP? It's just a file transfer protocol which we use in Linux, and we use it to set up our applications. Yes, it's just the same command to install it. We use it. You can use it for transfer files, to transfer files between a server and another server. I will quickly install it here, and let's see. For the remaining time we have, I'll quickly install an SFTP server. Then my aim is one, installing an SFTP server. My aim here today is going to be install an SFTP server. Ensure that only a particular user has access to it. There are lots of protocols you don't know. Just enjoy the process. There are lots of protocols. There's no particular or particularly say that you need to learn this particular protocol or something. So there are lots of protocols. No, I will do it. I will do it for the purpose of this training for the remaining time we have, to reference some of the things that we have already done before. I will be installing the SFTP server, and my reason for doing this is also to reference some of the other things that we have learned in the past and see how they work. So I just need a few minutes to set up my system, see if I can share my just give me a few minutes to see if I can share my screen. I'm still here. Just a few minutes, please. Yeah, it's my screen. It's my screen. I'm just trying to set up something. Okay. So I will just take us through an SFTP installation. This is not part of the things that we have learned, but I just want it to just be as part of the things that I want us to learn. Like I said, an SFTP server is is a file transfer protocol server. Is a file transfer protocol server that is used for transferring files between a client and a server over the internet. So what I want to take us through now is, I'll just write it down here, install SFTP to set up users per SFTP account. So these are just a few things we're going to do now. So let's start with the installation of SFTP. Is quite easy. It's a very straightforward thing to install. So for us to install SFTP, we just use the apt install vsftpd. Yeah. So I'm installing SFTPD. And I've installed it. So let's see system. See, you can't see. Can you all see my screen? Okay. Systemctl status vsftpd. So as you can see, it's up and running. It's been installed, and that's just it. I've installed it on my server. I've installed it on my server. Is that not simple? Isn't that simple? Okay, so the next thing that we're going to look at now is, well, let's now look at allowing it. So I want to allow it to work. Who can explain to me what this command does? Who can explain what this command does? I just need two people to answer. All right, that's great. That's great. So I've just enabled it now to run on boot. So whenever the system comes up on boot, it will run on boot. Now, the SFTP server has its own protocols. Now, because we have allowed UFW, we need to allow the UFW protocols for the SFTP server. So I'm now allowing UFW allow, let's say, port 20 TCP. So I'm allowing port 20, port 21, let's say port 990, and let's say port ranges between 5. I don't usually let this, but we can just do this. This is not added. So who understands what this command here means? SFTP ports 20 and 21, but for the purpose of this training, I just want to allow most of these other SFTP ports. So who can explain what the 5? Okay, that's great. I think a lot of us are really doing our work very well. That's interesting. All right. Now, so the next thing I will need to do, we have installed SFTP, we have allowed the ports. The next thing we need to do is to create a user. So let's add user And let's call the user FTP user. Password 12345. 12345. Full name FTP user. Yes, fine. So we have created an FTP user. We all know what we have done so far. Okay, fine, good. So the next thing we are going to do now is I'm going to go into the configuration file. And I want to do something in this configuration file. I want to deny the user permission to SSH. Okay. So did you all see what I just did now? Did you all see what I just did now? You all know what? Do you understand what I've just done now? I'm denying FTP user access to SSH. So FTP user cannot SSH. It's not part of the privileges that he or she should be doing. So the next thing we need to do is to restart it. Systemctl restart SSHD. Oh, you see, there's an error message. I'm denying the user access to SSH. I'm denying the user can't use SSH to you can't use SSH to communicate. So there was a problem with this, and that was why I was not able to restart. Fine. So the user I created, I'm denying him access to use SSH. Now let's create an FTP folder for that SSH user. Oh shit, sorry. Okay. So I've created an FTP folder for that particular SSH user. Please, I'm taking my time because I want everyone to follow what we are doing, and everybody understands what we are doing. There is no such thing as standard practice here right now with what we're trying to do. I am I'm trying to take us through some of the things that we have learned in the past, practicalizing some of the things we have learned in the past. Uh, can we see the file again, please? What file do you want to see? What file do you want to see? Okay. So I'm just denying the user access to SSH. I don't want the user to be able to use SSH. I don't want the user I just created to communicate with SSH. I don't want the user to have any SSH communication with the terminal. The user is supposed to just be an SFTP user, that all you just do for that user, that what that user does is just receive files that are sent to it. So what I'm trying to do here now is I'm trying to inculcate some of the things that we have learned before, and I'm trying to bring everything together to see how we can run one single project. Do you all understand what I'm trying to say now, or what we're trying to do? All right, great. So
Look, is that from that? He is.
so let's see who is our directory. So I'll leave this for now. We'll come back into that. So the next thing that we should do now is let's take a look at our configuration files. Remember I said etc is where we do most of our configuration files. My screen is being shared, isn't it? Yes, it is. So I'm on the FTP configuration file, and I want to enable something. Now, I want to be sure this command here means allow anonymous FTP. You can, if you want anyone to have access to this FTP, you don't want to make it secured, you can just disable it here by adding yes. That means that anybody can anonymously have access to this FTP. So we're going to leave it as no. Then we also want local, so we want people to be able to connect to it locally. Uncomment this to allow local users to log in. So I want local users to be able to log in. I want the user that I've created to be able to log into the SFTP. There are other commands again that if you want them to be able to write enabled, you can put yes. Local UMAX 022, you can also put yes and all that. Now, the reason why we allowed port 5000, I said I was going to get back to that. The reason why we allowed port 5000 and port down to port 10,000 was because we wanted to, that's what you call passive mode. So we wanted to allow passive mode. And that was the reason why we allowed that. So we're going to go back. Let's see, where is passive mode? Should be down. down, down, down towards the end. So I want the communications to pass through between port 5,000 and port 10,000. So that this FTP would actually know the ports to use for its various passive FTP connection. So let's see if, okay, there's no passive mode here. Let's set up passive mode. So I'm going to do passive mode minimum port to 5,000 and passive mode maximum port to 10,000. Passive mode is just here. I'm trying to make this, I'm trying to set, what I'm setting up right now is a standard, is a production ready SFTP connectivity. Now, the reason why I'm using passive mode is I want it to connect to SFTP using some particular ports and IPs. And that's the reason why I'm using passive mode. And I want a situation where once it's trying to communicate to my server, it would only use IPs within the range of 5,000 and 10,000. Do you all understand what I mean by passive mode now? Nick, Annie, Chukudubem. Do you understand why I'm using passive mode? It's not necessary, but this is, I'm just assuming this is a production ready service. I'm saying passive mode is, it's going to allow connection to my SFTP server on those ports that I've allowed for it. So once it wants to connect to my SFTP server, because I've allowed the 5,000 and 10,000, it can transfer using those ports. The connection will be done with port 21, which is the regular port for SFTP server. But for it to remain opened, it's going to remain open on a passive port. You can have whatever you want to use. Oh, I didn't specify the location. I created an FTP folder on my home directory. So I'm going to specify the particular location that I would need it to communicate with. Mm-hmm. All right. Please, you need to also be very careful that you don't put any space when you are setting up your files communication. Anything, you don't put space because it doesn't like, Linux generally doesn't like space. Let me see. I think it's better I just use vagrant slash, let me get the vagrant home/vagrant
going to
home/vagrant
Sonic Battery. Is that the super?
home/vagrant/FTP. So I just use the right form. So do you all understand what I've done so far?
So this one's the after. So that means we can do that just judging. Wait, wasn't it this game? Who was this? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm just making some configurations on the VSTP that we have set up. I tried to make it production base. That's just what I'm trying to do, nothing else.
Classic Sonic. Everybody said teams up. Where's the babies? The super one?
Please, if you have any questions so far, please let me know.
That's the baby one.
So on this part, you can say, it says you may specify an explicit list of local users to change root to their home directory if the change root local user is yes. I would have actually allowed this, but I'll let this be. I'll let this be so that we can just use the same configurations that we're using. I don't want to go into deep, so I'll let that be, and I think that should be all for our configurations there. That should be all for our configuration. So let's close this and restart system ctl restart now vs ftpd. So what I'm doing is not called scripting. I'm not scripting anything. I'm just making changes on the configuration file. So do we all understand what we have done so far? I've just installed. So what have I done so far? I've installed VSFTP. I've created a new user, and I have started making some configurations on my VSFTP file. That's just what we have done so far.
It's on your phone.
Okay. All right. So now that we have VS, what's my IP? Clear. So now that we have this running. Yeah, like someone said, I'm using the very secured one. So there are different versions. There's just the FTP and there's the very secured one. Okay, so the next thing I would like us to try and do right now is let's see if what we have installed is running before I make any further configurations. I think I should have my FTP somewhere. Do you guys know of FTP clients like FileZilla and other FTP clients? So I want to make a direct FTP connection now to this server. There are different ways of doing it. You can use your FTP client to make a direct FTP connection to the server. So I want to use FileZilla to, let's see if all the things that we just did now. So my host here is my server name, my server IP or my server name, .56.9, right? I hope I'm right. .8. Okay, .8. So the username I created was FTP user. The password was 12345. We can leave this as default because that's the same password. So can you all see the server I created for my password? Let me see if I can just copy a file to it. Oh, sorry. Unfortunately, I can't zoom this. I can't zoom this. I can't zoom this. Yes, you can use FileZilla even on Windows. So there is a permission issue which I think I will need to sort out. I remember I said I was not going to look at, well, we're going to look at the permissions much later. So there is, what is this? No, this is not what I'm looking for. Okay, clear. So we need to look at our FTP command for the user. The directory command. Okay, ls-al my FTP file. So I need to use the right owner, change owner. Do we all know how to use this? So I've decided to change my owner, and let me try moving another file now into it. Okay. There is still a permission issue here. Let's see. LSAL directory. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes. FTP owner. That's right. Thank you. Let's try that. FTP user FTP. Yeah. So refresh and let's try it again now. Hopefully, no, it's still giving us a permission denied error. Okay. Let's go back to our nano file. I'm using FileZilla for my transfers. Yeah, so let's allow write enabled and let's allow anonymous make directory underscore write underscore enabled. Yes. Let's try this now. And let's see. Refresh. And let's try it again. Yes. Yeah, so the issue was the permission. The permission was not letting me, because I didn't have write enabled to it. Now I allowed write enabled and it's fine. Clear. Sorry. List. So if you go into the FTP folder and you do your ls, you can see the file I just added, which is my readme file, has been added into this server. You can see the readme file I added has been added into this server. If we add more files to it, let's add more files to it. Let's add this Ansible playbook to it. If I go back in here, ls, you can see the Ansible playbook I just added has also been added to this. Yes, I added it. What if we want to add a file using permission? How do you mean by adding a file using permission? Okay, any questions? Today is sounding very, very dull. You guys are sounding very dull today. You guys are not exciting me with questions. Why? Yes, Favor, I'm giving you real life example of setting up an SFTP server. This that we just set up right now. Okay. Hopefully we should learn some little bit of networking, but not. We're not going to go so in depth. I don't think we are learning automation. I don't think we are learning automation. Okay. The last thing I did on that was I just allowed write access. So it says uncomment this to enable any form of FTP write command. So because I wanted write access, I enabled that. Yes, 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 yes. We can go over the steps we covered so far. Okay, a scenario where this can be utilized is, like I said, if you need to set up. I was working with a place where we have an FTP server. That was before the invention of S3 bucket. We had an FTP server where we were storing all our contents. So sometimes you want to transfer something like an S3 bucket, and you don't have the cost for that, or you don't want to use an S3 bucket. You can set up your own in-house SFTP server, set it up, give different permissions, different users access, and give them their own direct access to the SFTP server, and they can be able to connect to it easily. So basically, what I've just done here is I've just set up an SFTP server. I've created a new user, which is the FTP user. I have given the FTP user access to a particular folder and appointed the FTP user just to that folder. Yes, it's like Xender for Linux. Yeah, thanks, Obioma. And we allowed the FTP user direct connection to the server, and that FTP user also has access to a particular folder, only that folder. That is the reason why when I came in here, you could see the FTP user has access to only this folder. This is the only folder the FTP user can see in the entire Linux server. That's what I meant by permissions and all that. It's only this folder the FTP user can see. He can't do any other thing again.
How is it checking for this?
Is it charging? And because it's a charger, isn't it a charger?
Yes.
Can we use FTP client with S3 buckets? It depends on what scenario you want to use it with and why you want to use that. Because I said before the invention of S3 buckets, which most of us are familiar with right now. Yes, yes, yes. It can handle all formats. Anything you want to push into it, it can handle it. I hope today's lectures has been interesting. I just took that extra time for us to install something. So I think it would be great for us to run this as an exercise. You all should just install an SFTP server, create a user, and give only that user access to a particular folder on the SFTP. Yeah. You need to have headache. That is part of it. So same thing I've done today. You all should just try and install it. Uh, make as much, as much changes as you like. Make play around with the with. That's why you're using Vagrant. I mean, you should not be scared if you're using Vagrant. That's why you're using Vagrant. You should not be scared to make changes however you want to make changes. Are there people still having issues with using Vagrant on their servers? Are there people still having issues with using Vagrant on their servers, or sorry, rather on their systems? Okay, yeah, that's fine. All we just need is just one Vagrant system here. So as you can see, it's my Vagrant system I was able to connect into. I think you can also use the. I need to be sure, but I think you can also use 192.168.56.8 per 21. Okay, you can't use this. You can't use that. Esther, you just need only one vacant server for this, so that's fine. Yes, that was because you did not enable port 22 before you enabled UFW. My brother, that system you need to you need to destroy that vagrant system and create another one. That particular one you don't have access to it anymore. Ola Kazim, you need to you have just pressed spoil. There's nothing you can do about that one. You have to recreate it again because you don't have access anymore to it. Yes, you must enable port 22, otherwise it will block you out. That's why you could see the explicit Ezekiel. That's why you could see the explicit message it gave to you. You don't make such an error. If you make an error like that, the only thing you can do is to manually, physically go into the server and allow it. So since this is a VM, you can't physically go into the server and allow it. So that's gone. There's no troubleshooting. There's no troubleshooting. It's gone. That's you need to shut down that server and create another one. Obioma, yeah, you'd have to. You need to make sure that you set it up before you shut it down. Otherwise, you need to physically go into the server and allow it. Okay. Hmm. There are some things that I specifically did not do, which was running this. I didn't add this in my commands. That was the reason why I didn't want to bore you guys, but you can add this if you want to. Allow opportunity from anywhere. Create an SFTP user group. Okay. Okay. I didn't even try this for my SFTP server I created. So okay. I think this is a good one. I think it's a good documentation which you can use for this project. It's a straightforward documentation. So how is everything going on generally with you guys? I think we've been on this for about how many weeks now? 4 weeks. Um, can can you all say that there has been some significant improvements in your interaction with Linux generally? Are you building that confidence where once you have been dropped into any Linux environment, you can comfortably identify an issue, try to resolve it also? So if for instance I send an information to everyone and say we have a server running, and I would like you all to identify the reason why that server is not, let's say for instance, why Apache is not running. Can you investigate things like that? You don't need to remember all the commands. Google is your friend. Google can also always help you out with some of the commands. But like in a real life scenario where, because it's these things that usually you will not be needed to go into a company, and you'll be needed to be the, to start installing some of these things. Sometimes when you get into a place, one of the things they want you to do is to manage those services. So do you think that you will be able to investigate it? Okay. Okay. By now, I think you should, with the levels you guys have gone to, you should be able to make some search. Like some people have started saying, you go to the journal CTL and check and find out if Apache is running and all that. you should be able to actually handle that by now. You should be able to start learning how to make some research to find out what might be the issue and point out to exactly what you think is the issue. I don't mean you're like 6 months 6 months behind us right now, but it's fine. So a scenario. I just give a scenario, but and practically, why I just give us a scenario where Apache is not running. Investigate and find out why Apache is not running on a Linux system. Yes, like troubleshooting stuff. Yes, exactly. Okay, I want to ask a few questions. Just one or two scenario based questions. Um, Let me ask this question. So you are unable to SSH into a server. What do you think is the issue? So you are unable to SSH to a server. What do you think is the issue? Just give me like two things that you feel might be the issue. Okay, so yes, part of the issue might be, yeah, SSH configuration settings. Enable permission is not an okay permission. Okay, yes, but you know you can actually use the name and username and password to connect to the server. It's not always sure. It's not always certain that you must use the SSH keys. SSH is just a more secured way to connect to the server. Fumilayo. So that might not really be the issue. Major issue exactly. Abdul Razak, either the server is down or port 22 is not, it does not work, or port 22 is not allowed. You can actually use the username and password to connect to a server. That's if SSH has not been configured. Okay, let's say another question again. Now, this is a very tricky question. I'd like to know who is going to be able to answer it. Is it possible to assign a specific CPU core on a service, okay. So how can you do it? Daniel, when you say use system D, how do you intend to use system D to do it? Linux. Did you ever hear tax manager from Linux? You don't have tax manager in Linux. Daniel, when you say system D, how do you intend to use it? No, I'm waiting for Daniel that said Daniel is the only person that actually got the answer, but I'm still waiting for him. It has nothing to do with your Vagrant file. Okay, actually, you do it in a place like this. So if you have created your service file, like I want to use an example, I want to use this. This is a service file. Is the daemon I need. The daemon. Can you all see this? By editing this, you'll be able to do it. So for instance, if I want this service to have that, all I just need to do is to add my CPU affinity, maybe to a particular CPU service I want to, and that's all. So once I do this, this particular service will use my CPU setting. So it's going to use the 13th processor of my CPU to handle this CPU affinity. Just basically saying the particular service I want it to use. So if we use the 13th processor to manage this service. Depends on the type of server you're using. So do you so do you understand how I set my CPU affinity? So that's how you can actually assign different CPU usage to your different services. Hey. Okay. Are you guys still open for more questions? And you're not answering, you are just the cracking joke, okay? Let's see. There's a command to actually run that. So I'll answer that question. Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. LSCPU. But you can decide to grep. Of going to focus on the CPU slash slash this is how you can know the number of CPUs. So in this server, I have two CPUs, 0, 1, two CPUs. I'm writing grep is just almost the same thing as grep. So it's more like sorting exactly. It will work now. Why? Yes. I put 13. That was just me, but it won't work. So if I want to do it, I would have just used 0. I mean, you're going to be working on servers, and servers would you would have more than 13 CPUs. You'll probably have about a 32, thereabouts. There's no command for adding more CPUs to your system. Oh. Is there a command for that? I think that's a hardware thing now. Okay, guys. It's been a pleasure today. I would like you guys to, on a personal note, run an installation of SFTP, test it from your server, from your system to your what's it called again, to your Vagrant file, and see that it works, and we are good to go. All right, guys. Catch you all on Wednesday and have a wonderful week. Oh, Asaya, you understand. Trust me, I know you will. All right, bye.